Hey there, Marine. We know you're all about taking action, hitting the ground running. But today, we're going to do a deep dive into something just as crucial as physical training, your mental game.
Ooh,
We're talking MCDP 1.1,
okay.
the Marine Corps Doctrine on Strategy.
Right?
I think of it like this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't charge into a firefight without knowing your weapon systems inside and out right.
Right.
Well, MCDP 1.1, that's your weapon system for strategy.
Okay.
How to think about it, how to develop it, and how to use it to win.
So how to think about strategy, how to develop strategy, and how to use it to win.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
We've been digging into this doctrine.
Okay.
And while we might not wear the uniform,
Right.
we're here to break it down in a way that'll make sense.
Okay.
Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out.
Awesome.
First things first, MCDP 1.1 blows any Hollywood war movie stereotypes out of the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Forget about generals moving pieces on a map like it's a chess game.
So it's not like a chess game.
No. Strategy. It isn't some neat and tidy plan that unfolds perfectly.
Okay.
It's messy,
Right.
unpredictable,
Right.
and constantly influenced by things that you can't always control.
So things you can't control.
Right.
Right.
MCDP 1.1 actually uses this awesome analogy.
Okay.
Modern warfare. It's like a spider web.
A spider web.
You tug on one strand, logistics, intel, public opinion,
Uh-huh.
and the whole web vibrates. It's all connected,
The
Marine.
whole web vibrates.
No such thing as working in a vacuum.
I see. So everything's connected. There's no independent.
No independent strategies.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Right. Think about those field exercises.
Mm-hmm.
How often do they go exactly according to plan?
Oh, yeah. Never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things change on a dime. The enemy adapts.
Right.
That's why MCDP 1.1 hammers home the importance of flexibility.
Flexibility.
Your strategy has got to be able to roll with the punches.
It's got to be able to roll with the punches. Gotcha.
So if it's not just moving pieces on a board, how does MCDP 1.1 say Marines should approach strategy?
How should they approach strategy?
Yeah.
Well, it all starts with problem solving.
Problem solving.
Just like you approach a mission.
Okay.
Assess, plan, execute. MCDP 1.1 stresses that military strategy is about identifying the problem
Okay.
and finding the best solution.
Like a mission.
Exactly.
Just like you wouldn't storm an objective without recon, right?
Right.
It's got to scope out the situation first.
You got it.
Yeah.
MCDP 1.1 calls this strategic assessment.
Strategic assessment.
And it goes way beyond just the terrain.
Oh, okay.
We're talking the whole battlefield, 360 degrees,
Wow.
political landscape, social factors, economics, everything.
So it's like gathering intel,
Yes.
but on a massive scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And MCDP 1.1 says that any good strategy needs to answer three fundamental questions.
Okay.
First, what are the political objectives?
Okay.
Second, what military objectives will support those political goals?
Okay.
And finally, how do we actually achieve those military objectives?
Okay. So breaking those down, starting with those political objectives, we're talking of the big why of the war, right?
Yes.
Why are we even here?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Political objectives set the ultimate goal, the desired end state.
So the end state,
Yep.
and MCDP 1.1 makes it super clear that there's a difference between those political objectives and the military objectives.
Right.
Yep.
Military objectives are the concrete actions,
Uh-huh.
the tactics and operations that
Yeah.
get you to those political goals.
Okay.
But here's where things get really interesting.
Oh.
MCDP 1.1 points out that there can be tension between what military leaders might want to do, just crush the enemy,
Right.
and what political leaders decide.
Yeah, I can see that politicians, they have to juggle a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Alliances, public opinion, all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And MCDP 1.1 uses a classic example to illustrate this.
Okay.
The Anaconda Plan during the Civil War.
Now, the Anaconda Plan,
Yes.
named after a snake slowly squeezing its prey right.
Right.
The Union Army's goal was to blockade southern ports, control the Mississippi River, and cut off the Confederacy's resources. Basically, slowly squeeze the life out of them.
And that's a perfect example of how military objectives serve the political goal,
Okay.
bringing the Confederacy back into the Union without necessarily needing to obliterate the South's entire army.
I see. So we're seeing how everything's connected.
Yes.
But how does this apply to you, Marine, on the ground?
On the ground.
Yeah.
Well, MCDP 1.1 makes a big deal about communication.
Yeah.
It's got to be crystal clear between political and military leaders.
Yeah.
But that goes for every level.
Every level.
Following orders is essential, no question.
Right.
But MCDP 1.1 is saying Understanding the why behind those orders makes you a more effective, adaptable Marine.
So it's about seeing the bigger picture, how your actions fit into the overall strategy.
Precisely.
Okay.
And MCDP 1.1 gives you another set of tools for that,
Right.
centers of gravity and critical vulnerabilities.
All right, those sound kind of intense. Centers of gravity, critical vulnerabilities. How does MCDP 1.1 define those?
Actually, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Think of the enemy's center of gravity as their source of strength,
Okay.
what they rely on to keep fighting.
So what they need to survive?
Yeah, could be their army, a key city, a charismatic leader,
Right.
even public opinion.
Public opinion. Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever gives them their power, their ability to wage war.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, a critical vulnerability is a weakness
Okay.
that if you hit it just right,
Uh-huh.
can disrupt or destroy that center of gravity.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right,
Yeah.
we got to identify what the enemy depends on, their center of gravity,
Yes.
and then find that chink in their armor, the critical vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
that lets us take them down.
Boom, you got it.
Okay?
And MCDP 1.1 even uses some great examples from World War II.
Oh, okay.
The Allies targeted German industry, their oil production and ball-bearing factories. Not frontline combat units, but essential to keeping the German war machine running.
So it's about finding those pressure points, the things the enemy needs to fight effectively,
Exactly.
and figuring out how to disrupt them.
Exactly.
Right.
And MCDP 1.1 challenges you to apply this thinking to your own training and operations.
Okay.
Whether you're planning a patrol or analyzing a larger conflict,
Right.
always ask yourself,
Okay.
what's the enemy's center of gravity?
Okay.
And how can I exploit their weaknesses to achieve our mission?
It's like a mental checklist for approaching any tactical situation.
You got it.
Wow.
And that brings us to the next big concept in MCDP 1.1,
Okay.
the strategic concept.
The strategic concept.
This is your roadmap to victory.
So the strategic concept is the high-level plan,
Yes.
the big picture approach to achieving those political and military objectives, right?
Right on. It lays out what needs to be done,
Mhm.
in what order,
Okay.
and how to use your resources.
So how to allocate resources.
Yes. And again, World War II gives us a great example of this in action.
Okay.
The Allies focus on defeating Germany first,
Uh-huh.
then turning their attention to Japan. That decision drove everything.
Wow.
Where troops went, resources allocated, even the types of campaigns they prioritized.
So they had Germany first,
Mm-hmm.
then Japan. That was the strategic concept.
Exactly. That overarching strategic concept was the guiding force for everything,
Wow.
from theater-level planning down to individual operations.
So that's how a strategic concept works.
Mm-hmm.
But as with everything in war, flexibility is key.
Absolutely. MCDP 1.1 hammers that home.
Mm-hmm.
No plan survives contact with the enemy perfectly intact.
Right.
Strategic concepts, just like tactical plans,
Right.
need to adapt to the ever-changing battlefield.
So it's not about sticking rigidly to some preset plan.
Nope.
But about having a framework that allows for adjustments as things evolve.
You got it. Adapting, improvising, overcoming. That's what Marines do best.
That's what they do best.
And MCDP 1.1 is giving you the strategic context for all of that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Man, we've covered a lot of ground already.
I know, right?
Let's sort of diving into the rest of MCDP 1.1's wisdom.
Yeah, let's do it. We got more to unpack,
Okay.
including that crucial topic of just war theory
All right.
and the traps to avoid when you're crafting strategy.
Okay. So stay tuned, Ring. We'll be right back with more from MCDP 1.1 after a quick break.
Looking forward to it.
All right, Marine, back at it with MCDP 1.1.1. Before we jumped into this next part, we were locked in on those centers of gravity, critical vulnerabilities, how to really analyze any situation, whether it's a firefight or a full-blown campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But MCDP 1.1, it isn't just about tactics and maneuvers. It gets into something deeper. Ethics.
Yeah,
That's where just war theory comes in.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
You know, MCDP 1.1, it reminds every Marine, you're not just a warrior, you're a moral agent.
Okay.
Every action, every decision you make out there
Right.
has an ethical dimension.
It's not just about winning. It's about winning the right way.
You got it. And just war theory. The way MCDP 1.1 lays it out, it gives you a framework for thinking through those tough calls.
Right.
It's got two main parts,
Okay.
just ad bellum and jus in bello.
Okay. Let me see if I remember my high school Latin jus ad bellum. That's about the reasons for going to war in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Like, is this fight even justified?
MCDP 1.1 lists out criteria that have to be met
Okay.
for a war to be considered just.
Okay.
Things like having a just cause,
Mm-hmm.
being waged by a legitimate authority,
Okay.
and having a reasonable chance of success.
Yeah.
You can't just go to war because you feel like it.
Right. Makes sense. There have to be solid reasons.
Yes.
Morally defensible reasons for sending Marines into harm's way.
It also emphasizes that war should always be the last resort.
Okay.
You've exhausted all the peaceful options before you even think about pulling the trigger.
Right. Because war, it's serious business. The consequences are massive.
Now, on the flip side, you've got jus in bello.
Jus in bello.
That's about how you conduct yourself during war. Fighting in a way that's morally justifiable,
Right.
even in the heat of battle.
Okay. So this is where things like rules of engagement come in.
Exactly.
Protecting civilians, not using excessive force, treating prisoners humanely.
Right. On MCDP 111 is making it clear. Even when you're going after valid military objectives,
Right.
you can't just ignore the ethical implications of what you're doing.
So, for example,
Uh-huh.
say you're taking out a power plant.
Okay.
Cripples the enemy's ability to fight. Sure. But what if it also cuts off electricity to hospital schools?
Mhm.
Suddenly, you've got some heavy ethical questions to wrestle with.
Exactly. You've got to think through those second and third order effects.
Right.
And MCDP 11 is challenging you, Marine, to be able to explain why your actions are justified, strategically and morally.
It's about being a thinking warrior, not just a robot following orders.
Right on. Which brings us to the last section of MCDP 11.
Okay.
The common pitfalls to avoid when you're developing strategy. It's like they sat down with some seasoned veterans and said, all right, here are the mistakes we've made. Learn from them.
Yeah. Give us the rundown. What kind of traps does MCDP 11 warn us about?
Well, one of the biggies is looking for a strategic panacea.
Okay.
Thinking there's one magical solution that works every single time. Like a one-size-fits-all approach to warfare.
Yeah. It's not apt.
Not a chance. Every conflict is different. Every enemy have their own quirks.
Right.
Your strategy has to be custom tailored to the situation.
It's like trying to use the same tactics to fight a guerrilla force in the jungle as you would against a conventional army in the desert.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't compute.
Another pitfall MCDP 11 highlights, getting bogged down in process.
Yeah.
You're so focused on the how that you lose sight of the actual objective.
You're going through the motions,
Yeah.
but not really thinking about whether those motions are getting you closer to the goal.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, adaptability.
Right.
Sometimes you got to ditch the standard operating procedure and think outside the box to accomplish the mission.
Right.
Don't be afraid to improvise.
And then there's that temptation to try and win the whole war with one brilliant move, find that one decisive action, and boom, game over.
Looking for that silver bullet.
Yeah.
It's tempting, right? But as MCP 101 points out, wars are rarely won in a single battle.
Right.
It's a long game, a series of actions, a sustained campaign
Right.
that ultimately leads to victory.
Speaking of campaigns, MCDP 101 also warns against slapping labels on wars too quickly,
Yes.
calling them limited or unlimited.
You can't always fit a complex conflict into a neat little box.
Right, because what might seem like a limited engagement to us could be an all-out fight for survival for the other side.
Exactly.
Perspective matters.
Absolutely. And MCDP 11 is pushing you to consider those different perspectives when you're developing your strategy.
Right.
Don't underestimate the enemy's motivations.
Okay, so we've got to avoid looking for quick fixes,
Yes.
getting lost in process. Expecting a single knockout punch
Right.
and slapping simplistic labels on complex conflicts.
Yes.
What other pitfalls does MCDP 11 flag?
Well, here's two more.
Okay.
And they're kind of two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
First, analysis paralysis.
Okay.
You're so busy planning, gathering intel, you never actually pull the trigger.
Overthinking it, basically.
Exactly. But then you've got the other extreme,
Okay.
acting recklessly without considering the potential consequences.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between careful planning and decisive action,
You got it.
which I imagine is easier said than done in the heat of the moment.
That's why they wrote the book, right? MCDP 11 is reminding you that the decisions you make at the strategic level have much bigger ripple effects than tactical ones.
Wow.
A mistake here can have catastrophic consequences.
So choose your battles carefully, Marine.
Yes.
Weigh the risks and rewards. Make sure your actions are lined up with those big picture strategic goals.
Right.
Which, by the way, brings us back to where we started, MCDP 11. Yeah. This whole doctrine, it's about giving you, the Marine, the framework for thinking strategically, ethically, and effectively.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about being a leader who understands that winning isn't just about taking ground.
Right.
It's about upholding the values and principles the Marine Corps represents.
So, Marine, We're wrapping up our deep dive into MCDP 1.1, the Marine Corps Doctrine on Strategy.
And we were talking about those common pitfalls that can trip up even the most seasoned strategists.
Right, those craps.
Yeah, looking for quick fixes, getting bogged down in process, expecting that one silver bullet to win the war. MCDP 1.1 warns us about all that and more.
It's like they're saying, hold your horses, Marine, think long-term, be adaptable.
Yeah.
And remember, this isn't a video game.
Exactly. And it all comes back to understanding that strategy is about more than just tanks, troops, and terrain.
Right.
It's about people.
It's about understanding what's driving the conflict. What are the motivations, the fears, the goals of everyone involved?
Right.
Your side, their side,
Mm.
the civilians caught in the middle.
You've got to grasp those human factors to truly craft an effective strategy. And that brings us back to the idea of just war theory.
Right.
MCDP 1.1 makes it crystal clear. Being a Marine means being an ethical warrior.
Yeah.
It's not enough to be skilled in combat. You've got to be morally grounded, too.
Because at the end of the day, you're not just following orders. You're making decisions that have real-world consequences.
Exactly. And MCDP 1.1 is giving you the tools to navigate those morally complex situations that inevitably arise in war.
It's about knowing that even in the chaos of combat, there are lines you don't cross, holding yourself to a higher standard, even when the enemy might not.
That's a key takeaway from MCDP 1.1. It's a call for Marines to be not just tactically proficient, but morally sound. Leaders who understand that true victory isn't just about conquering territory. It's about upholding the values and principles the Marine Corps represents.
We've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive, Marine, but hopefully it's given you a better understanding of how MCDP 1.1 can help you be a more effective and ethical leader. It's a roadmap for navigating the complexities of modern warfare, on the battlefield and beyond.
We encourage you to dive into the document yourself, talk it over with your fellow Marines, and think critically about how its principles apply to your own experiences.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into MCDP 1.1. Keep those questions coming and keep striving to be the best, most thoughtful Marine you can be.